Welcome to this League of Women Voters Forum for the City Council election that's coming up April 2nd. I'm Janet Labrie. I teach English at UW-Waukesha, but I'm a Janesville resident and a member of the League of Women Voters, and I'm really happy to be here doing this forum for you. First, I'd like to ask you to turn your cell phones off if you've forgotten about that thing. I always do. So the format is going to run like this. We're going to start with an introduction by each candidate in turn, starting on the far end here with Brian Fitzgerald. And then I'm going to ask questions of each candidate in order, but each new question will start with the next person down. So if it's complicated, don't worry about it. I'll manage that. So we have timers here. The fearsome Ellen Trewartha and Tom Stahura, you better stick to the time or you're in trouble. So the questions that we ask then after your introduction will be a 1 minute response, and you can watch them and count on them to keep good time for you. We have cards out here. Carol has cards over there. And over here, there's some other cards for you, audience people, to write questions. If you have questions that you would like to have discussed, you can write them and hand them back to these two people, and they'll bring them up here, and we'll see if we can get them asked too. So we're ready to begin, and the first thing that I want to do then is have each candidate give us a 2-minute informational, no, that's not right, about themselves. So we'll start with Brian.
My name's Brian Fitzgerald. I'm a 1972 graduate of Craig High. I went to college in Denver and got a degree in business at Regis University in 1976. I was born and raised in Janesville. I raised my children here. I've owned a number of different businesses here and spent almost all of my life in Janesville. I'm running for the council because I want Janesville to remain as it has in the past, just a great place to live and a great place to raise your family.
All right, thank you. Sam Liebert?
Thank you. It's Liebert.
Liebert, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this great event, the library, and also to Forward Janesville. My name is Sam Liebert. I'm running for re-election to Janesville City Council. And a little bit about myself. I'm a 2003 graduate of Parker High School. I went to school at UW-Rock County and American Public University, and I'll be attending UW-Whitewater this following fall to finish my degree in public policy and administration. Janesville's been my home for 23 years now. I moved here when I was 5 years old. And I'm running for re-election because my single mother taught me that to whom much is given, much is expected in return. And I feel I've been extremely lucky growing up here in Janesville. I've been given a lot of opportunities to travel, also both education-wise and work-wise, and I feel I can give back at this opportunity right now. I'm engaged to a beautiful woman, the love of my life. We're getting married next year, looking to buy a house, and I'm hoping to stay here in Janesville and continue the family tradition and staying here and sending my kids to the same schools I did and working hard to restore the infrastructure that's falling apart here in Janesville, bringing jobs back that we've lost since the 2008 recession, and working to maintain the great public safety that we've all enjoyed in our communities and neighborhoods. And I'm hoping that if you'll give me another chance, I would love to have your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Dwayne Severson.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and Forward Janesville for having this forum. And Sam, congratulations on getting married.
Thank you.
Before I go forward. I'm Dwayne Severson, and I'm running for re-election to the Janesville City Council. And I want to continue to serve the people of Janesville by making the tough budget decisions that are needed at this time. We must maintain strong police, fire, trash, and snow removal services cut non-essential expenses, and eliminate barriers for job creation. We also need to stop tax and fee increases, and most importantly, we need to have the city live within its means. I have 25 years of financial management experience with Mercy Health System, 9 years on the Janesville School Board, 2 years as its president. I've served with the United Way, the Forward Janesville, the Pregnancy Helpline of Janesville, Janesville Morning Rotary, as well as the Alzheimer's Support Center, and the New Life Assembly of God Scouting Program. Janesville has a strong, proud tradition of overcoming obstacles that have confronted our community. Now is the time for Janesville to come together once again and to work to enrich and enhance the lives of everyone. And I look forward to our discussion tonight.
Thank you. Jerry Smythe?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and Forward Janesville for the opportunity to participate in this event. My name is Jerry Smythe. I'm a lifelong resident of Janesville, having raised 2 great kids here with my wife of almost 40 years, Vicki. I'm a 1970 graduate of Craig High School and received an Associate of Arts and Science degree from UW-Rock County in 2004. In the interim, I was employed at our local GM plant as a manager in the Quality Control Department, taking early retirement in 2002. With 11 great years of retirement now behind me, I find myself with the time, opportunity, and motivation to get more involved in our community. We need good people with work and life experience coupled with common sense to lead us through what I perceive will be some tough budget debates in the years to come. I feel I have the experience and determination to do just that, and it is my sincere hope the voters of Janesville will give me the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Broda?
Good evening. I'd like to also thank the League of Women Voters and Forward Janesville for having us here tonight and the opportunity to share my ideas and strategies to help improve Janesville in the future should you choose to vote for me on April 2nd. I've been in the Janesville area for over 10 years, and I have a political science degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. I also have over 15 years in the financial services industry, which has allowed me to help many clients make those hard, necessary cuts and decisions to balance their budgets and to use their finances effectively. Janesville, and going forward, I just don't believe that excessive spending and taxation is the avenue that we need to take. I think we can find cost-effective measures, or better yet, even cost-saving measures, while continuing to provide the exemplary services that we've come to expect from the city. I think we should be aggressively seeking opportunities to increase our economic base and development, and I want to support the expansion of businesses in town that currently call Janesville their home. So hopefully tonight you'll get to know me a little bit better, and hopefully you'll share some of my ideas and views as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Markline?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and also the Forward Janesville for this opportunity. My name is Douglas Markline. I'm the second generation in a family home building business that has been building in Janesville since 1959. The skills that I use in my profession, I believe, are the same skills that are needed in the City Council. I work with people on the biggest purchase that they make in their life. I listen to them. We plan it together. We balance their needs and their wants. We work on budget and bring it in on time. I joined the South Central Wisconsin Builders Association in 1980 when I graduated from college in Madison with a degree in real estate and construction administration. I worked with them. I was on their board of directors. I was finally their president and builder of the year. I organized and ran the Parade of Lights charity display that we did at Traxler Park while I was a member of the Builders Association. We also were involved with the TQM, working with the city engineering department, and we smoothly made the transition from the city paying for development to a developer paying all the cost of development. We made that work very smooth. It's worked to Janesville's benefit for that. I also served at that same time on the Janesville Zoning Board of Appeals for 6 years. It's a great place to learn about Janesville. You bring people in that want something from the city of Janesville that's not allowed by ordinance, and you try to find a happy medium, so it's a win-win situation, and we usually had that. I also attended every single Smart Growth Advisory Committee that the city held when we made our comprehensive plan. Because of that, I was asked by Rock County to represent the development community on the Rock County Comprehensive Plan. And because of that, I was asked to be a member of the ad hoc Rock County Commission for PACE, which is Farmland Preservation. And I currently serve on the Plan Commission. I have the time, energy, and desire to serve the citizens of Janesville the best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll start the first round of questions. Remember that the answers are 1 minute for these questions. So I'm going to move down the line here and start with Sam. And I hope you don't mind if I call you all by your first names. Thank you. Beginning with Sam, what do you believe are the top 3 issues facing the City Council?
Well, I think the top 3 issues facing the City Council and ones that I'm talking about on my campaign is, I think number 1 is the jobs and the economy here in Janesville. Janesville's still reeling from the 2008 recession with the loss of General Motors and the loss of a lot of the companies that supported General Motors in this economy. And I think it's incumbent upon the City Council to do what it can to spur job creation and growth, to retain jobs. And I think the past couple of years since I've been on the council, we've done that. A lot of private-public partnerships moving forward. Just this past week, we voted on a grant that would help keep GoEx here in Janesville and also expand by about 63 to 70 jobs. And so I look forward to using more tools like TIF districts to expand job creation here in Janesville. Second issue that I think is of utmost importance is our infrastructure. I think we need to invest in that. We have a lot of catching up to do maintenance-wise. And I think third is our public safety, maintaining a strong police force and fire department, and making sure that we keep crime rates low and keeping Janesville a safe place to live that it is.
Thank you. Dwayne?
The 3 things I see are in line with the survey that was done by the city this past year. 1, we need to continue to grow Janesville jobs, and we need to grow them now. Number 2, we need to stop any possibility of the discussion of tax increases through referendums and any sort of taxes, and in addition, fee increases. And number 3, we need to have the city live within its means. Citizens within our community and businesses within our community have had to meet their daily needs and make some adjustments over the last 4 to 5 years. The city needs to do the same thing. We need to look at that budget. We need to be able to provide the services that the citizens of our community have said that they want. They are open to some reduction in services. And they want to make sure that our tax dollars are used wisely. So those are the 3 things I'm looking forward to working on. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
I'm going to sound kind of redundant. Everybody's mentioning the same things, and I will too. Economic development. We need to fill the void left by General Motors. The city budget. We must be good stewards of the taxpayer's dollar. We shouldn't be raising taxes or raising fees. We pay plenty in taxes and fees, in my estimation anyway. We need to be careful with the deficit spending. We're borrowing money right now. We're taking money from the reserve fund. We've got to stop that. Eventually, we will hit a budget crisis, and we've got to learn to live within our means before that happens.
Thank you. Julie?
Again, I want to mirror a couple of the comments already made, and that's definitely aggressive economic growth and development. But with jobs that provide sustainable living wages, I'm a big fan of the new restaurants coming in, but we need jobs that provide for our skilled workforce where we can employ them so that they're here instead of going to other cities to utilize all the education that they have attained. I also think that we need to cut non-essential expenses to help balance the budget and find cost-effective measures to use for our essential services while not minimizing any of the essential services that we have grown accustomed to as of today. Then I also think that we need to look forward to maintaining the city for our future generations, to provide for the children and for the generations that come after them.
Thank you. Douglas?
Thank you. We have obviously the growth and of jobs and our budget, but what Janesville needs, I believe, is a vision where we're going to be 5 and 10 years from now, and we need to work for that vision. We need to invest in Janesville's future. We need to have an honest assessment of our budget needs, our budget wants, and our budget costs, and find the best balance, true value for our taxpayers. I believe the citizens of Janesville may be willing to pay a little bit more in tax if they can see where this money is going and it's not wasted on things that they don't need. And 3, I think we need to work on our infrastructure and find out what we can do to make Janesville attractive for people to invest in this great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I would say the top 3 items, issues, are jobs, infrastructure, and our 2014 budget. Jobs, I think we've spent, quite frankly, way too much time talking about sidewalks and roundabouts, and we need to get back to the basics and talk about jobs. Consumer spending makes up 70% of the economy in the United States, and people who aren't working are not spending money. Infrastructure, I think we've become accustomed to a high level of service from the cities, whether that's roads, water, sewer, whatever. We need to maintain that and take care of that if we want to continue to enjoy the good infrastructure we have. And last, the budget for 2014 is projected to have a large shortfall, and that's going to take a lot of hard work, and that's a major.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with Dwayne. Would you consider outsourcing any city services to private contractors? If so, which services?
Thank you. I think when you look at that question, I think what needs to be done first, and again, I go back to the survey that was done by the city, we need to look at the services that we have. What are the services that are being provided, and are they at the levels that the city wants, the city citizens want to have done? I think we need to look at all things. Obviously, police, fire, trash, those types of things, they need to be maintained. I think we need to be open for every type of review of the budget, services that can be done. But I think we have to first identify what the services are, at what levels we want to provide them, and are we using technology the best that we can? Again, I think that's the review of the entire budget has to be completed, and we need to look at all possibilities.
Thank you. Jerry?
There are obviously places where we may want to outsource in the future, but quite honestly, I'm not really in favor of that. Outsourcing is not something that I would look at right now. If the budget crisis that I was talking about a few minutes ago comes to pass, then maybe we need to look further into it. Trash collection, for example, that's an opportunity. But at the present time, outsourcing would be off the table for me.
Thank you. Julie?
I would have to say that outsourcing would be one of my last resorts in an attempt to balance the budget. I think that we should take a thorough look of the services we are providing. Any cuts, especially for non-essential items that we could possibly use. Obviously, we don't want to eliminate any more jobs than we need to within the Janesville area by outsourcing. But again, I do believe in balancing the budget, so I think a good hard look at where we are making most of our expenses. But again, with Dwayne, I think there are some areas that should not be touched. Police and fire are 2 of my top. Outsourcing those, I don't think is a realistic or even possible venture at this point.
Thank you. Douglas?
I'm not in favor of outsourcing at the present time. I think what we have to do is similar to what Mr. Severson said. We need to look at the cost of the services that the city presents, see if there's better ways of doing that with technology and techniques. And once we get that underhand, have a discussion with the citizens of Janesville what we can afford and what we cannot afford. And the things that we cannot afford are maybe opportunities for private business to come in and make those services, but I would not be in favor of outsourcing at the present time.
Thank you. Brian?
I think outsourcing would be a last resort. we should spend some time studying the different departments and the things that they do, and trying to make them more efficient at what they do, and spending the taxpayers' money more wisely.
Thank you. Sam?
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but I also oppose outsourcing. I think the city, though, like Dwayne said, I think, though, sometimes, though, we need to look to see where it's appropriate. I think it's appropriate sometimes if we need a specialized contractor, perhaps a specific attorney, if we're involved with some sort of lawsuit where our city attorney can't handle that situation or needs more people power. I think it's appropriate. I know right now we're looking at contracting a forester to help the city deal with the emerald ash borer problem. So I think in those instances, I think outsourcing is appropriate. But like other folks have said, police, fire, I wouldn't support outsourcing any of those positions.
Thank you. The next question. What are the most important things the City Council can do to ensure a transparent, participatory, and collaborative city government?
I think what we're doing right here is a good example of the types of things that we can do to support that. Janesville, in my mind, has done a great job in that regard. I've sat through a few city council meetings. They're open. People get opportunities to speak. What more could you ask for in a community this size? So I'm satisfied with what they're doing, and there's obviously ways, I'm sure, to improve, but off the top of my head, I can't think any.
Thank you. Julie?
Well, I think as far as participatory, I think it's very important as a city council person to keep the lines of communication open, be aware of emails and voicemails as they come in by concerned citizens, being open to listening to input and new ideas, because obviously as a council person, we would be here to serve you and your interests and concerns as well. Transparent, I think with our open meetings, I realized with the Shine Medical Technologies, there were some issues with people feeling that wasn't the most transparent way to handle that. But overall, as a general counsel, I think Janesville's done a tremendous job of keeping the community informed or having the information available if people saw fit to look for that information. So I'm much in favor of voicemail, email, and just being open to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you. Douglas?
I think the last few years, the city council has done a great job of being more open to the community, and I credit that to the city council and especially Kathy Voskel, our president, for the past 2 years. Plus, the Janesville's website has been updated, and there's a lot of great information available about Janesville on our website that the citizens can take a look at. We're also on Facebook. Our city manager is doing coffee house things where he goes on a regular basis and meets the public at coffee houses. Years ago, the city council used to have neighborhood listening sessions, informal, usually held at schools, and I would advocate strongly that we would start those up again and meet neighborhoods and find out what's happening in our neighborhoods and make neighborhoods rally together and work as a unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I think we just need to keep our ears open and keep an open mind. We have a vast amount of brain power here in town. There's a lot of people with good ideas. Some of them possible, some of them might be dreamers, but it never hurts to listen and to consider things. I think there are other ways we could participate more. I agree with Doug, all the electronic methods, it's a very easy way. On the other hand, some of the older citizens don't use many of those. So I think having an open forum and possibly meetings with, informal meetings with the council would help.
Thank you. Sam?
Well, I think the council, what we do right now, I think is extremely open and transparent. We also have the informal meetings first Mondays of every month in the kitchen that's just right off the left-hand side of the council chambers. We've done a lot to update the website this past year. We're on Facebook now. I think it's great that we're doing email alerts as well to folks who sign up on a listserv to get updates on newsletters, on snow alerts, things like that. So I think the city has been really proactive and progressive and getting its message out there on what we're doing and what we're up to and how people can become involved in the process. I do like the idea of going back into neighborhoods and having kind of informal meetings. I think the Fourth Ward is a perfect example. The Fourth Ward Committee has actually been more proactive on their end in working with the city council. And the fact that they formed was because there were problems, and I think if we can kind of mirror that image and be proactive as a council ourselves, we can go into communities before problems kind of come to the boiling point, and I hope we can move forward with that over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Transparency and collaboration were two of the words that were presented, along with all the other things that have been presented by the 5 individuals before me. I would do a couple additional items. One of the things I would do is have the council move on the agenda input from the community at the top. The council's there to serve the people, not to have them second or third on our business, but the council's business should be to listen first to the people. So I would suggest that for the council to look at having the first order of business right after the Pledge of Allegiance is to have it open to the citizens to speak first. The second item I think has worked really well, and that's the collaboration. The collaboration, and we've talked a little bit about sidewalks, but the collaboration model that's been set into place to use for other issues is a great opportunity for citizens to work together in really any issue that might come up to our community. So I think those are the things we just continue. Thank you.
Most landlords in Janesville are responsible in maintaining their property and when responding to tenants, but a few are not. What, if anything, might the city do to ensure that all rental units in Janesville provide a minimum level of acceptable living conditions for tenants?
Well, I definitely agree that the majority of landlords in the Janesville area are very responsible and receptive to their tenants' needs. The few that do pose a problem and poor living conditions for their tenants, I think that those reports from those tenants need to be taken seriously and acted upon in a very time-efficient manner. I know they had mentioned posing a fee per landlord, and I don't necessarily think that that's the solution that we're looking for. But again, I think being proactive, and when complaints have been levied, they need to be taken to heart and acted upon quickly and efficiently, and those landlords should be dealt with, whether it be fines or fees for them or for their non-action, but definitely to provide safe environments for all of Janesville citizens.
Thank you. Douglas?
Right. I am a landlord, and I have 2 daughters that just successfully completed 6 years of college each, so they were tenants, so I know it from both ends. I think we have the tools at our disposal right now to enforce the bad ones. I think we need to use our tools. But one model that I admire that Madison has, and I think Janesville could set it up, would be a rent escrow area where if you have a complaint against your landlord, you can appeal to a municipal body, maybe a city committee, and they can have a hearing and they can decide whether that the tenants discussions are valid or invalid. And if they're valid, pay the rent into an escrow and hold that until the landlord does what he needs to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I agree that most landlords are responsible. I know the city recently considered hiring more inspectors to inspect all city property or rental properties, but I agree that that was not a solution. Certainly the landlords that create these kind of problems are well known, and it's the same people, and the city knows who they are, and we need to concentrate efforts on making those landlords responsible for their properties and not waste time bothering people like Doug who's has very nice units.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
Thank you. I think I agree with a lot of the other folks up here. I don't think that the way to do it is to charge every landlord $30 a year for a citywide inspection. I think it's almost akin to giving everyone in this room a parking ticket and saying, well, someone was going to speed eventually. I don't think that's the way to do it. I think we need to be proactive, working on the slumlords, the nuisance tenants who cause these problems in the neighborhoods. I think Jennifer Petrozello in Neighborhood Services are doing an outstanding job with the resources that they've got. And I'd actually like to see, moving forward this spring, we're supposed to have a kind of a summit, hopefully with a lot of the landlords in the city. I'd love to see a tenant/landlord bill of rights, possibly, where when someone rents a property, both parties are given their rights, their laws under the state of Wisconsin and the federal government on who to call if they have issues, and vice versa. And I think just information and knowledge is the best way to be proactive. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Thank you. Broad brush solutions never work for anybody. Again, work with the individuals that are causing the problem. And again, I'll go back to the model that we implemented with the sidewalk committee. There's the landlords in this city want to sit down with the city to work out issues because they don't want to have the stigma of the landlords that aren't doing their jobs. So let's use the resources and the knowledge of the great landlords that we have to help in making the solutions that we need to have done. We have that. I think we work with them, work with the city, and I think we'll have the solutions that we need.
Thank you. Jerry?
I agree with everything everyone said so far. We need to follow up quickly and aggressively on complaints. I do not agree. I don't feel we should have increased inspections. That really doesn't seem to me to be a solution to the problem. We should not penalize good landlords because of a few bad apples. And that's pretty much what everybody else said.
Thank you. So let's move into another hot topic in Janesville. Is there a rationale for requiring sidewalks for everyone in Janesville, no matter what the circumstances? And would you support that or not?
You're asking me first?
I am.
No, sidewalks has been an issue in Janesville as long as I've been a member of the Janesville community, and that's been since 1959. What the council did in their wisdom a year ago was what should have happened a long time ago. A systematic look at all the neighborhoods in Janesville that don't have sidewalks and might require them, using a point system to find out which ones should and should not have. And the idea of putting it to a consensus model of citizens in Janesville was a wonderful idea. It had a great success, even though it wasn't reported that way in the media. The consensus model forced everyone to come together and find the common ground. There's just a few left over, and I think that when this committee has done their work and the city council in their wisdom will adopt it, we won't be done with sidewalks forever, but we've made a great step forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I've recently said that I oppose sidewalks at the Kiwanis Club and also to the Janesville Gazette. I don't really oppose the sidewalks. What I oppose at this point is just the timing. The economy crashed in '08. We lost GM. Thousands of people lost jobs. A lot of those people still aren't working. And it's just the wrong time to saddle a homeowner with a $2,000, $3,000 bill for a sidewalk. I mean, you could actually cause someone to lose their house with a bill like that. And the sidewalk problem, I realize, isn't going away, but I think it's something that should be addressed once the economy in Janesville recovers, and not right now. People just don't have the time or have the money to do that.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. Well, being one of the city council members on the sidewalk task force, I've found it a very eye-opening experience with the consensus model. Thanks to folks like Dwayne Severson on the council and others, we came up with this new committee to work on the sidewalk issue. Now, I voted consecutively against the 7-year plan over and over again, but I agreed to this task force because I thought it would be a good idea to get more citizen input and come to a consensus. We've literally deleted dozens of miles from the plan. We've asked the hard questions to make sure that sidewalks make sense, and I do plan on voting for this new plan coming forward. I think we still have a few more things to tweak. It's not perfect. Democracy never is, but I think it was a good compromise from both the pro and anti-sidewalk groups in the city. I do have to say, though, that I think sidewalks make sense in certain places. I think they help folks who have disabilities or require them. Not everyone has a car. We have to remember that. And I do look forward to hopefully getting some of this behind us. We've given 10-year deferments to people who live in local areas, and so I think we've made a lot of great compromises to hopefully move past this topic.
Thank you. Dwayne?
I support the process for people to have a voice in what they're going to have to pay for. And I think the model that we established in this last year does that. The overwhelming statements that came out of the 200 to 300 people that showed up at that city council meeting in April, and the calls that I received, was that people did not have a voice in the process. In my latest discussion with the city manager, approximately, I think between 53 and 57% of all of the sidewalks that we have reviewed will be done. 30 to 40% won't be put in. I think it's important to let people have a voice in the process. I think the consensus model has worked. We've had people from all sides work together. And I think that's the process, again, that will make our city move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
I don't think that sidewalks should be required in all areas. Certain subdivisions are developed without ever intending to have sidewalks put in. So I don't feel that they should be forced to do so everywhere. I think the City Council and the Sidewalk Committee did a good job taking a bad situation and making the most of it. What we've started needs to be completed, and I really do commend them for the hard work that they put into it, and I think they've done a good job.
Thank you. Julie?
I also agree that the consensus model was probably the best compromise that the city could come to between the citizens and the pro and anti-sidewalk groups. I'm just tickled pink at what the task force has come together and been able to agree on. And no, I wouldn't have been a proponent of just blanketly having sidewalks put in throughout the entire city. I do also agree it is a necessary evil, if you will, because there are folks that have disabilities, and there are school areas and high foot traffic areas. So yes, obviously, if certain areas of the city are in need of them, but to blanketly state that the entire city would be required to have them, I would not have been in agreement with that.
Thank you. Now we're going to start with Brian. This is a question from the audience. As a city council member, what would you suggest that we do regarding the increasing problem of homelessness in our city?
Homelessness is a tough problem that just seems to have no easy solution. In the past, many times church groups tried to take up the torch and try and fill the gap that is there between government assistance and reality. It's a tough, thorny question for some people that really do need a lot of help. Many of them struggle with not just being homeless, but other issues where they need help. And I don't have a quick, easy answer. I don't think there is a quick, easy answer to that. It's a tough problem that has been with us too long.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. Well, I think homelessness is a huge problem in our not only our city but our county and our state. And I always think that everyone is always one circumstance away from being homeless, whether it's medical bills, domestic violence. You can find yourself on the street pretty fast. I've been affected by it personally in my family, and I know the hardships that come with it, the humbleness that comes with it. But I think there's a lot of great private organizations, nonprofits, ECHO, House of Mercy, church groups that work with the community and provide resources for folks, whether it's food, whether it's shelter, whether it's transportation for the children to school. I think our city can do a lot to bring about awareness. I know the city council, we do the big food give drive once or twice a year to not only raise food, but also to raise awareness. And I think it's a community-wide effort. I don't think government should do this on their own. I think it takes a village to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
This week, actually, our church is one of the churches that is having a homeless shelter for the Gifts Ministry, and I've worked in the intake center, and it is tough. When I leave my job, and I'm very fortunate, and when I sit across and I look at individuals ranging in ages anywhere from 18 to 80 years old, it makes me stop and think. I think what we need to do is to continue to support those groups, church groups, lay groups in our community that have developed good programs to reach out to these individuals. We have groups that come in to help them out, try to get them a job, try to meet their needs. A couple weeks ago, when I was there, a gentleman broke his glasses. Somebody from the Gifts Ministry worked the next day, got this young man some glasses. I think let's use the abilities that we have and the resources we have in our community to be able to meet the needs of these folks. Thanks.
Jerry?
Homelessness in Janesville is a terrible problem. I think the Gazette does a good job bringing that out to the community and making people understand just how severe it is here. We, as a community, as a city government, should support our local charities in helping alleviate the problem without spending a lot of money. I don't think it's the city's job through taxpayer dollars to do that, but we need to support that effort any other way that we possibly can. One of the things that we have to understand is economic development in this city will have a very major positive impact on that. And I think that's where we need to put our financial efforts, is economic development.
Thank you. Julie?
Well, I would definitely agree with a couple of the gentlemen up here. Homelessness is heart-wrenching, but Janesville has so many community resources that aren't available in so many other areas of our state and throughout the nation. The Gifts Men Ministry, we have ECHO, really through non-governmental agencies, there are a lot of opportunities to help those that find themselves in a homeless situation. I think, much like Dwayne mentioned and also Jerry, that we should leave it to those private nonprofit organizations and provide our support for them, but not necessarily take it up as part of the city council.
Thank you. Douglas?
Janesville has a big, big heart and very warm and welcoming as much as they can. But homelessness can be such a faceless problem that you just can't put your arms around it that much. And my heart goes out to the charities and the churches that have these homeless shelters and do the best they can. And I appreciate the Gazette's putting a face on it to help people get more aware and involved in doing whatever they can to help through little food drives or furniture donations and ECHO. And we do have a community assistance department that will help these volunteers wherever they can. And my heart goes out to them. As Mr. Fitzgerald said, it's a tough one. It could happen to any of us at any time. Just one small slip, one little accident, one major medical bill. Thank you.
Thank you. We're starting with you, Sam, this time. Has your campaign for city council received any funds? If so, please identify the source of the funds other than you and family members.
Well, I don't have a list with me, but I can say that a majority are from individuals. A majority, I'd probably say 80% or more, are from the city of Janesville. I have received political contribution money from two outside groups, I believe. One is the Union of Pipe Fitters, and then I received another check from the local 580 firefighters. I'm the only city council member who was endorsed by the firefighters and other organized labor in Janesville. I'm proud of that record. I think I have a good record when it comes to not only representing the taxpayers, but also different organized union groups in the city and making sure that their voice is also heard at the negotiating table when it comes to union contract negotiating times. But most of my money is all coming from individuals, mostly from Janesville.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Well, Sam's mentioned I don't have a list of contributions. I can say my sister-in-law from Minnesota gave me some money. But outside of that, it's been, very fortunate. The folks in the community have donated to my campaign as they have last year and other years. So I've been very fortunate to, get folks who would support me, and I think it's a testament to our community that we've got folks that will donate to your campaign for all of us. I mean, we've all received some money, I'm sure, but people are involved in campaigns, so I think that's great.
Thank you. Jerry?
Friends and family, individual donations, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Friends and family as well. Friends of friends that share like views and visions for Janesville. I believe I'm accurate in saying that 100% are from citizens of Janesville. And unfortunately, I don't have any more details to provide for you at this point.
Thank you. Douglas?
I'm not actively soliciting at all. I've had a few friends and a couple family members throw in a buck or two, and that's about it.
Okay, thanks. We're starting with Dwayne this time. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Mine
sorry.
are 90% from Janesville, mostly friends and family.
Okay, thank you. So now we're starting with Dwayne. Okay, thanks for keeping me straight. Another issue that's been running around in the city, getting lots of conversation, is the whole issue of beer in city parks. Considering that Wisconsin ranks number one in binge drinking as a state, do you support allowing beer in city parks?
Thanks for the question. It is a concern. I did not support the beer in the parks for this reason. At the end of the day, when I have to deal with kids and I look at kids, is it that important to have that beer in the park? I realize that folks, and we had good discussion on this, whether or not we should allow the beer in the parks. And I think, Sam, you and I were the only ones who voted against it. It's just one of those questions that, at the end of the day, is that the thing we really need to have to support our community? I don't think so. I think there's enough opportunities for individuals to have an adult beverage. Kids don't have a lot of other opportunities to go and be there. I think for the families that have come out of situations, as I have, where alcohol was an issue, if we can have just one less opportunity for them to be able to see those alcohol, to be able to have fun, to have an enjoyable time, I think it's worth it. So I voted for the kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Jerry?
I don't see a problem at all with beer in city parks, especially the way that they've got it now with just the couple of the places in the parks where it's allowed. I see no problem at all with it. People need to be responsible for their own behavior, and I think we're all adults, and I think we can all do that.
Thank you. Julie?
Well, I think what the city council decided on as far as limiting the areas was a nice compromise, but I would not have supported beer in the city parks. We're not all adults. We are children as well, and I'm with Dwayne in that respect, that I think that we need to keep a few places that are safe for our children that don't have that type of negative influence.
Thank you. Douglas?
If it was any park, anytime, anybody, I would have said no. But the fact that we restricted it to certain areas, a 3-day permit fee and a fee to pay for the pavilion and an extra fee for the beer, I think that's going to encourage family reunions, high school reunions, wedding celebrations, and birthday celebrations to come and use our beautiful parks in a responsible manner. I believe if there's a few individuals that go out there and trash one of our pavilions, they're going to make the front page of the paper, be vilified, and the city will have recourse to go after them. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I agree that the current compromise, I would agree with. I'd like to be able to just have a beer in the city park. I'd like to be able to buy a sandwich in a city park, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think we need to enhance the parks in any way we can to draw more people to them. We're the city of parks. It's probably one of our best attractions. The binge drinking, allowing beer in city parks isn't going to change that one bit. The irresponsible people won't change. Hopefully they don't show up in the parks, and if they do, you call the police.
Thank you. Sam?
Well, this doesn't happen a lot, but I'm going to say I agree 100% with Dwayne on this issue. No, Dwayne and I were the only two that voted against this ordinance change, and probably for maybe some of the same reasons. I think, with Wisconsin's binge drinking problem, will it change anything in the long run? Maybe not, but adults have a lot of places to go to enjoy an adult beverage, and I feel like children are having fewer and fewer places where they're exposed to it. They're constantly bombarded by advertisement. They see it in their TV shows. It'd be nice maybe to have the parks be that one spot where they're not exposed to that. But again, I think the compromise, I guess, was okay. It's limited, and you can't police everyone, and hopefully people will take responsibility for themselves and act like adults. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're starting with you, Jerry. Would you consider a consolidation of some services with the county and/or other municipalities? And if so, which services?
I guess that is something that could be looked at. I know that you can save some money by eliminating redundant services. I think some areas have tried fire protection, for example, some policing. I don't know how well that would work for the city of Janesville, however. We've got 60+ thousand people right here, and I'm not so sure that would be a good idea. So I guess I would not be supportive of that.
Thank you. Julie?
Well, I definitely think the topic deserves further research and investigation, particularly where the streets and snow plowing are concerned. The big thing before anything would be consolidated would be, is there a substantial cost saving? Is it really a worthwhile consolidation?
Thank you. Douglas?
I would agree exactly with what Julie said. If there is a huge cost savings, it's definitely worth investigating and looking at it. It hasn't proven to be that way in other communities. I'm not 100% sure it would prove that way to be in Rock County. There's also, I believe, some personality and municipal turf issues that would have to be resolved in order for this to go forward, and it may actually be dredging up more problems than we would solve.
Thank you. Brian?
I agree with Julie. It's worth investigating. Whether or not it's worth proceeding, time will tell. But if it can result in a significant savings, it's worth pursuing. And if not, I'd just leave it the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
Well, I think right now a hot topic issue of looking to work with other municipalities and sharing time and resources is animal control. Right now we're working with several municipalities in the county on possibly building a new animal control center, possibly hiring a few part-time police department staff to work with different municipalities, Beloit, the townships, on animal control and moving forward in a more efficient manner. We also work with Beloit on sharing specialized staff like engineers. We work with the county on buying salt for our roads in the wintertime in bulk, which saves the taxpayers a significant amount of money. I think also fire coverage. Right now we cover a lot of the townships, and that's actually also a revenue generator for our city, which helps offset our costs for our personnel and equipment. But I also think, too, working with other municipalities with police training, SWAT training, sharing of resources, and the canine dogs, I think, is also a great way to move forward. So there's a lot of ways we're already working with other municipalities to save money, and I think there's a lot more room to save money and share resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
And I will demonstrate that I can agree with Sam on that one. We have, and the city has done that, and I know when I was on the school board, we did some working with the city council on trying to share services. I think, again, it's the process. I think there has to be put into place the process of looking at all services on a continual basis, and that's working with all communities. Little by little, you can only start, it's only going to start small, but I think the process to put into place to look at services on a continual basis every year, is there something else we might be able to do? It may appear small in a $40 million budget, but a 1% savings is $400,000. I think things like that can help our citizens out a lot. So yeah, I would be in favor of any and all opportunities to work together to consolidate services. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll start with Julie now. This is a question from the audience. What can or will the city of Janesville do to reduce the $75 million ongoing debt? Is this the time for austerity?
I like that question. I think, again, and I said it before, we have got to be aggressive in providing economic growth to bring in, even if TIFs are involved, if your neighbor's going to work, people that are employed spend money, which brings in sales tax revenue. It's time to make some really difficult, hard cuts within the budget. We can't continue to use overspending what we're bringing in. Each and every one of us, I'm sure, has had to make cuts in our own budgets with the economic climate of the last 5 to 7 years. We just can't be afraid to do that anymore. Obviously, essential services would be my last option, but there are so many opportunities within our budget to not run over what we're bringing in. But again, economic growth and jobs for the area are key to balancing a budget and providing cost-saving measures.
Thank you. Douglas?
This time of historically low interest rates, it's not a bad time to seriously think of refinancing and making sure that we're getting the best terms on the debt that we have. And it's really not a great time to repay it. We don't have money to make our basic payments. I would like to see Janesville, though, get a 10 to 12-year plan on how we're going to go forward, work with the growth, and build our community out of this. It used to be the joke that you would build yourself out of a recession, although in this economy that has not proven to be the way it's working, but I still think it's the goal that we need to work toward. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, in any business, there's only two ways to take care of debt. One is reduce your expenses, and the other is increase your revenue. And I think, quite frankly, we have to do both. In this economy, that's going to be a severe challenge, but the debt has to be addressed. I think it's been ignored too long. I think it's also been used as a crutch to resolve current problems and push, I call it kicking the can down the road so that some future council has to deal with the debt. And it's time to stop kicking the can, stop borrowing money, face the music, and deal with this on a long-term basis.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. I do agree that the debt currently that the city has is an issue, but I think if you look at it in the big picture, I think the past several years, the city council and the administration has been pretty, I think, responsible with the debt. We're about 35 to 40% of our legal limit that we're allowed to borrow for money, where if you look at other cities like Oshkosh and Appleton, they're somewhere in the 75 to 80% of what they can legally borrow. And so I think Janesville's done a great job at being frugal and responsible. I think definitely there are projects I've supported and not supported where I thought it was a waste of money, whether it was a few $10,000 or several $100,000s of dollars. But I think at the end of the day, the council needs to come together and decide what we need versus what we want. I also believe we should be changing more over to a pay-as-we-go system. Right now, we borrow almost 100% for paving our roads every year. We should be doing about 15 miles a year. Right now, we're only doing about 5 to 6. That's why I introduced legislation for the referendum, which would have raised up to almost $2.5 million to help pay-as-you-go, because I believe people would rather pay for something now than borrow for it 10 years at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
The city council needs to ask the tough questions to the city administration. One example in this last budget was the replacement of a fire truck. By just delaying the placement of that money 1 year did not delay the purchase of the fire truck at the same time frame. It's those type of wise decisions and tough questions that have to be asked to the administration. What are we borrowing? Why are we borrowing it? And does it have to be borrowed now? I think too much in the past, the council has accepted whatever was brought before it rather than trying to structure the debt appropriately. I think those are the issues that we have to do. We have to ask the tough questions of the administration. Do we need it, and do we need it now? Thanks.
Thank you. Jerry?
I think restructuring the debt is a great idea with the low interest rates. That's something we should definitely look at. We need to either cancel or postpone some capital projects. There's a lot of money being spent out there year after year, and if we're ever going to get this debt under control, we've got to better prioritize where we're spending the money. I would not be hiring more city staff. I would keep the staff levels where they currently are. I know that they're anticipating bringing some more people on. I think that's not a good idea at the present time. There are other things we could look at, maybe selling off some city assets, such as that. But right now, the big thing is capital projects. There's a lot of money out there that could be saved if we just postpone or don't go forward with some of them.
Thank you. Douglas, we'll be starting with you. This is another question from the audience. With our changing demographics, do you feel there is a need for more or better enforcement of fair housing laws in Janesville?
I think we need to continue enforcing the fair housing laws in Janesville as best as we've been doing with our city departments on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
I agree with Doug. We need to continue to do what we're doing and make sure that that anyone, regardless where they want to live, can live there.
Thank you. Sam?
I agree with the last two speakers. Janesville, I think, does have a growing demographic. It's becoming an older city, but we're also becoming more diverse, I think both racially and economically, especially since '08 with the closing of General Motors and several other companies. And so I think we need to be proactive and making sure folks can live where they want to live, making sure they're not being discriminated, and I think also working closely, again, with landlords on making sure that, you know, we do have fair and equal practices across the board, and that's a conversation I look forward to having with the Landlord Association and others. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Strong families and a strong city are benefited by enforcing fair housing rules and regulations. So, as the others have mentioned, I'm totally supported. Thanks.
Thank you. Jerry?
We need to make certain that the fair housing laws are enforced in Janesville, obviously. The law, we need to do it.
Okay, thank you, Julie. It's kind of a hard question to say, no, that's not enforcement, right?
Yeah, at the risk of redundancy, I also believe I'm in firm support of our current fair housing laws, and whatever we need to do within our city to keep those upheld and maintained, I am absolutely for.
Thank you. We're starting with Brian. Brian, what do you see as the scope of responsibility for members of the City Council?
I would say any and all issues that have to do with anything that happens within the city limits, regardless of the topic. It's the priority of the city council to take care of it. I would also mention I didn't like the referendum idea, not because it would raise revenue, but because it was in fact tossing the question back to the voters. The reason the voters put you on the city council is to make those tough decisions. That's it.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. Well, I think the scope of responsibility for council members is to be responsive and reactive to the needs of the people of the city. I think it's incumbent upon us to be expedient when it comes to returning calls, to answering questions, and just making sure that we are representing the people that elected us. And when it comes to issues, and I'll bring up the referendum again, I don't think it's kicking the can down the road or shirking your responsibility. This is a state law on the books that says if a municipality wants to exceed tax levies, they need a yes or no, up or down vote from the citizens by referendum. And by trying to do our job to balance the budget, whether you agree with it or not, by raising tax levies, I believe I was executing my responsibility by asking the people what they'd like to see done with their taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
I think first you have to listen. As I mentioned earlier, if reelected, I would ask the council next year to bring, at the first part of every meeting, listening to citizens. I think the second thing is when an issue comes up, research it, rather than just go off of emotions or things you may have thought in the past. So listen, research. Next, I think the thing that really needs to happen in our city is we need to challenge the administration on their conclusions. Not to disagree with them, but let's make sure that the answer that they bring forward on an issue is the answer that's best for Janesville. And then act. So listen, research, challenge, and then act. Thanks.
Thank you. Jerry?
I believe it's the responsibility of the city council to set the agenda for city administration. We, as Dwayne just said, we need to listen and get input from the citizens of Janesville, and then we do need to act. But it's up to us to make sure that the city administration knows where the citizens of Janesville really want the city to go.
Thank you. Julie?
Well, I definitely feel that we need to be good stewards, not only of the finances within the city, but also of our natural resources. We've got some beautiful land within Janesville, and it would be a shame to let that go. I definitely feel we need to be receptive to citizen concerns, and I like Dwayne's idea of putting citizen input at the forefront of each of the meetings. I also believe we do owe it to you to research items and topics brought up and to not make snap decisions and really take into consideration all the options that are available and not just one or two that were the status quo in the past. And also, obviously, once the research and hard work has been done, taking the action when necessary, whether it be a difficult decision or one that is going to benefit and provide joy to all the citizens if we could ever find that topic.
Thank you. Douglas?
Well, being elected to the city council is probably one of the highest responsibilities that the citizens can bestow upon any individual. And there's 7 people up there doing their best. And we owe our loyalty first to the citizens of Janesville who elected us, not to anybody else. It's a nonpartisan office and should remain that way. Our dedication should be to our citizens. We also, as individuals, need to hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards, not embarrass the city by anything that we would do or not do in the public arena. We also need to listen, as has been mentioned. The trouble being the last one, you have to repeat everybody, but you definitely need to listen and make decisions. And I'm not a big fan right now of the action or public hearing and action on an item at the city council meetings. If we have the public hearing and there's discussion, we need to let that go another week or 2 weeks and find out the answers and then come back and put the action together. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be starting with Sam this time. Sam, are you aware of any unmet needs in Janesville currently? And if so, what would be your suggestion to aid those problems?
Well, I think back to top 3 issues that I think every council member should have on their mind, and I think a big one is infrastructure. I didn't have this much time before, but right now we're only paving 4 to 6 miles of road a year. We should be doing about 14 or 15. And if you look at a graph that the city engineer, Carl Weber, presented to the council several times, within about the next 7 or 8 years, about 50%, half of the roads in the city of Janesville will either be failing or near failing. And I don't think that's acceptable. I don't accept it. And I don't think the voters of the city should accept that. I think the city council needs to be bold and brave in the next decade and finding a solution to, if not catch up, at least begin to get back on par with fixing our crumbling infrastructure. And I think also that includes bridges, pipes, electrical lines. I don't think companies are going to want to invest in Janesville if when they come in to visit our city, the first things they hit on Milton Avenue are potholes. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
I go back to the survey that was done by the city in the last year. In the survey, the citizens said we need to create a more friendly and a stronger city for job creation. Job creation will solve a lot of the issues that we've talked about tonight and also issues that we've talked about at the council level. If we have good paying jobs for our community, we're going to be able to pave those streets and not borrow the money. We're going to be able to take care of our parks the way we'd like to take care of them. We're going to be able to pay and add police officers and firemen. But we need to have a job. We need to have a community that really creates jobs. We need to be able to, again, look at everything within our city that's stopping the creation of jobs. Even if it's just one or two items, we need to bring jobs into the community. With that, we're going to raise the tax base, and everybody's going to benefit. Thanks.
Thank you. Jerry?
I agree with Sam. I think roads are a big deal. We've got lots of potholes now. We do need to spend some money to get those things corrected, pave more roads, fix sewer lines, repair bridges. I also think that our downtown, I know people have been talking about downtown projects along the riverfront and different things. I think those needs would help with the economic development in the city, and I think that's something that we should put high on the priority list.
Thank you.
Yep.
Julie?
Much like my top three concerns, I think the unmet needs are job opportunities for the citizens of Janesville, and similar to what Dwayne had said, removing barriers for job creation, allowing businesses to come in seamlessly to our community and provide those opportunities for our citizens. I'm also in agreement with Sam on the infrastructure, because if we don't have a good travel system, companies will not be interested in joining us. They'll be much more interested in joining communities that have kept up to pace with the maintenance needs of their city. So I think those two things are key.
Thank you. Douglas?
Obviously, job creation is number one, but another thing I think Janesville needs to look at is the graying of Janesville. We're getting older, our demographics are getting older. We need to find ways to attract young people to Janesville, to live in Janesville, to live downtown, to create a family in Janesville, to come here and date and find places to go that are exciting and wholesome to do. And I think if we can do that, we can get a new spark, a little bit of vibrancy going on in this city. And it would spark the downtown growth for restaurants and shops and activities that we have. And it would help our schools with a better population of students that are willing to learn. So I think we have to figure out what we can do, not only for jobs, but also to bring young people to Janesville to live and raise a family.
Thank you. Brian?
I agree with several of the panel that job creation and economic growth is the key to everything. I think we need to remove possibly some laws or ordinances that create barriers for business, that give them an excuse not to come here, and show them that we're willing to work with them and do whatever's necessary to bring their business here.
Thank you. And you raised a question or a point that I wanted to have all of you expand on, and that is, what kinds of things can the City Council do to aid job creation? And we'll start with Dwayne.
What kind of things can the city do to aid job creation? Again, I go back to what I've said before. We need to continue to look at all the rules and regulations within the city that might prevent a company from coming to Janesville. But I think we also need to work with the developers in our community in the plans that they have worked in the past to develop our downtown. By having a vibrant downtown will create jobs. So I think really those are the two things I would add for right now.
Thank you. Jerry?
Again, go back to the downtown thing. I agree with that. We need economic development. That in itself will bring jobs. Tax incentives, ease restrictions, and the tax incentives are a big one. Regulations, easing things for businesses when they come in. We need to do whatever we can as a community to make Janesville more receptive for new jobs, for new employers.
Thank you. Julie?
I'm also a proponent of tax incentives if they're done properly with parameters and if they're structured appropriately, and the businesses that are coming in also have some financial input to that as well. I think we should also be working with our representatives up in Madison. There are grant opportunities out there for job creation, and I also agree that within the city, we need to modify some policies that does make it easier for businesses to come in and set up within our city limits.
Thank you. Douglas?
I think the majority of job creation in Janesville is going to come from within. I think it's going to be our existing buildings, businesses expanding. And Janesville has invested in an innovation center down on Beloit Avenue that if you haven't seen, you should go down and take a visit. It's an incubator. It's to take the guy and his wife who are working out of their garage to find them a little bit better quality space where they can grow their business and make their ideas into reality. And the hope is that they'll outgrow the innovation center before their lease is over and invest in some of our existing buildings and grow Janesville from the inside out.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, as I said before, I think we need to remove some laws and restrictions that prevent new employers from coming here. I also think we need to be very aggressive in working with our existing businesses, with local businesses that have been here for many years. I think they tend to get put on the back burner sometimes in the frenzy to attract new business. Unfortunately for us, at this point, we have to compete with every other city and town out there to try and get these employers. And so I think we're going to have to be, not just create tax incentives or TIF areas, but I think we're going to have to be a little creative in doing things to attract them to come here.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. Well, if Governor Walker's watching, if he wants to include that I-90 expansion in his budget, that'd be a great start. But I think what Julie said is a great idea. I think working with our legislators, I think a lot of this political turmoil has hopefully passed us, and Madison can start to work again by working with its municipalities to help make Wisconsin and our community a friendly place for business. I think, again, tax incentives are a great tool, especially the TIF districts. One of the win or lose this election, one of the proudest things I've voted on was for the Shine medical tax incentive package that the city provided. It was one of the deciding 4 votes. One member had abstained, one had voted no. And if I had voted no or abstained myself, it wouldn't have passed. And I think Shine is going to be the new GM of Janesville. The fact that 150% of the domestic supply of Molly-99, a nuclear isotope that's used for cancer screenings, is going to be made right here in Janesville, I think is something we can all be proud of, and I think will create and bring in a lot of other auxiliary supporting companies to help us grow. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to start the next question with Jerry. Name 3 items that you would cut from the budget.
Well, I spoke a little bit earlier about capital projects. There are some things that I don't think we need to be doing right now, animal shelter being one. I would freeze staffing at its current levels. I would look into restructuring the debt. Again, we talked about that. Possibly selling some mass city assets, parkland, maybe a little bit. Small across-the-board cuts to all departments, 1 or 2%. Those are all things we could look at doing to save money.
Thank you. Julie?
Well, I definitely think we should start with some non-essential services within the city. Obviously, police and fire are necessary and essential for a safe and welcoming environment. I'm much more inclined to go with the small across-the-board cuts. I think every city office that we've had has an opportunity to save in one small way or one larger way or another. So I'm much more inclined to take the across-the-board approach than I am to just blanketly cut a particular program.
Thank you. Douglas?
Ditto.
Oh, is that it, Douglas?
No, I'll elaborate a little bit. city staff here, and they're just as tight as they can be. And they're working very hard with short staff. There's a lot of positions that haven't been filled. And I think what we have to do is just go find some efficiencies that haven't been identified, find some savings, some things that we can work out. If we can find 1 or 2%, that would actually balance the budget. We wouldn't have to dip into the reserves for that. One thing that I would definitely look into that we have done, and the goal is admirable, and that is restoring older buildings in some of our older neighborhoods, because we're able to get some government financial monies for that. But I'm not sure it's 100% sustainable when we spend $178,000 to buy a house that we sell for $78,000. The goal is admirable. I think the finances stink. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, I agree with Jerry. I think we need to look very closely at capital projects, many of those in the millions of dollars. We should also review restructuring the debt. If it was, that money was borrowed at high rates, we could certainly save a lot of money on that. And something like the Humane Society building, I don't know. I guess something like that, I just need a lot more information about what it costs, about how they propose to finance it. But projects like that, we have to look long and hard at.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. Well, I think it would be irresponsible for any of us to promise, well, these are the top 3 things I would cut from the budget. I think every year it's circumstantial. I think the city is doing a lot more with a lot less. We have the exact same number of firefighters as we did 33 years ago, 1980. We had 80 firefighters then. We have 80 now. Our population was 40,000 then. It's almost 64,000 now. So the fact that we still have the same number of folks helping protect us from fires and respond to our 911 calls, I think, is very admirable. And so I think we already have a very lean budget. I'd like to see us get out of certain businesses with the city. I'd like to see us eventually someday, if it becomes profitable again, possibly sell some of our golf courses to a private entity to run those. And also the Oak Hill Cemetery, we're running that. Right now we got a special buy one, get the second one half off. So I think there's some things that the government does well, and some things I don't think we should be involved with at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
I'm not sure how I follow up with that last statement, Sam, so I need an extra 2 seconds. The question what to cut is presumed upon that everything we're doing is correct and it's the most efficient. I think the question's got to be, what are we doing, and are we doing it the most efficient? And then it goes to, why stop at 3? Why stop at 3? I think there's a lot of things that we can restructure, redo for the city. But just to say there's 3 things to cut, I think there's a lot. How are we delivering services to our community using the tools, again, that our citizens have contributed to? And let's meet the needs that our citizens say they want to have met. And I think we'll be very surprised that we can meet those needs, and we can do it for less than what we're doing right now.
Here's the last question. Why should voters elect you to the city council? Who was supposed to go first? All right, take it away.
Because I'm very optimistic and enthusiastic about the future of Janesville. I feel confident that I can do the necessary research to make the smartest and best decisions along with the council as we have it today. I'm not afraid of making those hard cuts and those difficult choices. And just with my history in financial services, I believe that balancing a budget and being fiscally responsible and a good steward with taxpayer dollars is just a necessary requirement at this time in this type of economic climate that we're dealing with. And I would appreciate your vote on April 2nd.
Thank you. As I said at the beginning of it, I've had a lot of experience working with the city of Janesville, starting way back in 1999 when I was on the zoning board. Worked with county, worked with the plan commission, and I've worked with the city as a private developer and home builder, and the skills that I've learned from all of that, I would bring right to day one and be able to start working for the city of Janesville. Winter is just about over. It's lasted 5 years. The Debbie and Donnie Downers of our community were wrong. Janesville has survived. It's strong, it's vibrant, it's going forward. Just like tulips, we're starting to see signs of growth in Janesville. We've got housing sales starts and housing values are starting to rise. Vacant stores and restaurants are starting to come up. We've got new commercial activity. What will Janesville look like in 5 years? I'm excited for it. I think there's a lot of great things going to happen here. We're going to have Shine. We're going to have the Innovation Center. The downtown plaza will be gone. UROC is offering more classes. The interstate expansion. We're losing trees. We need experience to help guide us through these next 5 years. Thank you.
Brian?
I'm a businessman, and I have been all my life. I've run 7 or 8 different businesses in Janesville. I know how to write a budget. I know how to stay on a budget. I've done it for years and years. I'm a decisive person. I don't walk away from tough decisions. I'm not worried about having to tackle a tough project or a tough question that needs to be taken care of. I appreciate you all coming here tonight, and I also would like your vote April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. Well, I think when it comes down to it, it is about, I think, experience, whether that's work experience or life experience. Some of the other candidates that are up here today have been in their career choices longer than I've been alive. But I think that says something to who I am and what I'm hoping to represent. I think Doug said earlier that he wanted Janesville to be a place where younger people want to come and live and stay and start a family. And I'm just that person. I'm going to be 28 years old here pretty soon, just finishing up college, starting my career. And I also want to see people of my generation and the generations behind me stay in Janesville, buy a house here, live here, raise their kids, and become a productive member of society. And I'm hoping that I can represent that, so that I can be a voice for the next generation coming up behind us who want to stay here in Janesville and move forward. I've had 2 years of experience now in the city council. I'm hoping I can take that experience and apply it hopefully to the next 2 years. And hopefully with your help and support, I ask for your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
My wife and I moved here 20 years ago. We raised our 7 children here. They're starting to come back. And that's a good thing. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I've lived in bigger cities. I love Janesville. Why vote for me? I want to continue to make Janesville a great place to live, a great place to come to, a great destination spot for people in the area. I want people to come from all over Wisconsin, from Illinois. Put your money here. Put your investments here. Janesville's a great place. I have the experience, not only working my 25 years in financial management experience, but serving on the Janesville School Board for 9 years, for working on the City Council for a year. I know how to work with people. I know how to get things done for the better of everyone. So I would appreciate your vote on April 2nd.
Thank you. Jerry?
Janesville is a great place to live, but I'm very concerned right now with the economy, with the job situation. We've got to learn to prioritize on the city council. We've got to learn to live within our means. I think I will be able to make the tough choices and provide some leadership on the council to help make that happen. And I also would appreciate your vote on April 2nd.
Thank you. Thanks to the candidates and to the audience who is here tonight. Good night.